Imagine being able to predict your community's response to wildfire, earthquake, or hurricane, not through guesswork, but through a game. What if we told you that gaming could actually help save lives? Well, today we're joined by Arthur Simental, a career emergency manager and the mastermind behind EM Disaster Gaming, a tool that blends strategy, chaos, and preparedness into one immersive experience. Stay with us. You're listening to DisasterClass podcast by Instinct Ready Emergency Management. Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Perez.
And I'm Pappy.
And Pappy, you know what the bell means.
It is classes in session.
Welcome back to DisasterClass, the podcast that brings you expert insights, real-world stories, and practical preparedness tips to help you stay safe and ready for whatever life throws your way.
And today we're diving into the fascinating and innovative approach to disaster preparedness, disaster wargaming. But it's more than just a game. It's a new way to test and improve real-world disaster response. And today we talk with Arthur Simental about his Emergency Operations Center Wildfire Mayhem board game.
And this board game was pretty cool because it's actually inspired by the 2012 Waldo Canyon fire disaster. It's an immersive, educational tabletop game that simulates real-life disaster scenarios, helping both professionals and families better understand emergency response dynamics. And so through strategic decision-making, resource allocation, and the chaos factor of unpredictable events, players can experience the complexities of a real disaster response in a hands-on, engaging way.
So if you want to learn more or get your hands on a copy of the game, be sure to visit emdisastergaming.com, and we'll have a link to the website in our show notes.
But before we jump into the gameplay itself, let's get to know a bit more about our guest, Arthur Simental.
So Arthur Simental, I'm a career emergency manager, certified emergency manager. I've spent, which all that means is I've spent majority of my career in emergency management. I've worked emergency management across all levels of government for 16 years now.
So Arthur has over 16 years experience of government, homeland security, emergency management, and emergency services. He served at all levels of the government, from local to federal, and across the private and non-profit sectors. His work spans critical areas like healthcare and public health emergency preparedness, space and defense, security, education, and critical infrastructure. So Arthur is also a published author, a threat liaison officer, a member of FEMA's Science, Technology, and Integration Special Interest Group. On top of all of that, he holds multiple degrees, including a Master of Science in Homeland Security and Emergency Management. And currently, he's completing his doctorate in Homeland Security. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, that's, I mean, all the experience he has is just incredible. And unfortunately, I mean, he's got such a rich history and rich background. Unfortunately, we couldn't include it all in this episode, but hopefully we'll be able to provide some further clips of our interview and talks with Arthur. But with that impressive background, let's find out how his passion for games turned into an innovative preparedness tool. So I just want to interrupt for just a moment to say thank you to Sawyer Products for sponsoring this episode of DisasterClass. I personally love Sawyer products. I've been using their water filter and insect repellent for years. Every time I go camping, hiking, spend any time outdoors, I've got my Sawyer products there. I keep a water filter in my go bag. That way, if anything happens, I know it's there when I need it. So whether you're in the backcountry, the backyard, you're on the trail, or doing humanitarian relief, Sawyer products are making an impact. So visit Sawyer.com today to learn more and to find a retailer near you.
I came up as a gamer. I loved board games, Risk, Axis and Ally, Star Wars Rebellion, Pandemic, which is great but slow. And I came up playing games, and I got into, video games. I'm a computer gamer, big gamer. all types. And I've always loved that. And so this was kind of like how my research got started. How do I take something I love with what I'm doing and bring them together? And so I've spent the last 2 years developing this concept. It's called disaster wargaming. Wargaming is kind of a weird moniker, but serious gaming is otherwise what it's known as.
So really, it's fascinating to see how his passion for gaming became a tool for learning. But why specifically wargaming?
Wargaming actually predates the game of chess, sorry. So wargaming goes back like 2 centuries and has been used famously and made famous contributions to everything going back to like the Napoleonic Wars for how they strategize. What's interesting is that this practice is backed by decades of decision science, and which is all based on understanding impact and consequences. And I tout it as a new revolutionary form of tabletop exercises.
So this isn't just theory, it's a practical tool grounded in science and history.
Yeah, and one of the most compelling parts of Arthur's game is really the interesting part that it's designed to make you fail. Let's hear him explain why.
The reason is that you can actually use it to evaluate and test all manners of plans, policy, procedures, and it's designed where I like to say my framework, my disaster wargaming framework, is designed where I hope you fail. Because that's where you learn. Failure is the greatest teacher. But the framework allows for you to go back and understand and break down those decisions to say, why did I fail? What did we do? How did this strategy or policy apply?
Failure becomes a learning tool, and helping emergency managers see the weaknesses before a real disaster strikes.
Yeah, and Arthur actually shared some historical examples about how that highlights how powerful the concept of wargaming can be.
World War II, Admiral Nimitz, post-World War II, said that we could predict everything the Japanese would do, and we predicted everything the Japanese did, but kamikazes through wargaming. The thing I hate hearing the most is we could never prepare for that. We could never learn for that, or we didn't expect that, And I'm like, so if World War II, we could predict everything the Japanese would do except kamikazes through wargaming, but you're telling me we couldn't prepare or predict that a fire might do this or that, or disaster this or that? You're telling what you're, there's a huge mismatch here, and to me, it goes fundamentally to practice and education. So to fix that, I set out 2 years ago and I said, I could write about this and take the academic route, or I think I've got something and I can jump and just do it.
The ability to predict decisions and the consequences from those decisions can be game changing in emergency management.
And Arthur's mission goes beyond emergency management professionals, right? What I loved is that he actually wants this game to be accessible to a variety of people and audience. In fact, he wants families involved too.
This game is tailored towards both the community, because my dream is to have kids can buy it. It's $65 online from my store. I have a web store, Ian Disaster Gaming, where you can buy the games, but also future games, expansions, merchandise, right? So we've got these,
got the swag. Yep.
Got the swag and the coins. It's all about the merchandising, like the Schwartz. With the space balls,
Yeah, may the Schwartz be with you. Yeah, I got you.
Space balls, the flamethrower. So, so with that, at $65, you can get a base version of the game, and I tailored this both towards emergency managers, so you can buy the add-ons and add more complexity and scale up for actual professional wargaming and training. But I also created it in mind for the community, because I want families to be able to buy this and be like, have fun. The real evil genius in me was like, if I can make it affordable for anyone, for any family, or the kids who love police or fire, all that stuff, they're going to play this. And one day I want to walk down the street and hear kids like, oh man, that incident commander did terrible, or talking disaster terms. And they don't even know, but they are learning actual emergency disaster management, right?
Yeah.
And what's really cool is the gameplay mechanics really mirror real life challenges, right? Disaster situations, and they're very fluid. There's a lot of unpredictable things that can happen, and the gameplay really encapsulates that.
really challenges people to think. You know, oftentimes when you're doing tabletop exercises, people just kind of wave their hand and say, "Oh, we'll just call mutual aid or call our partners or do this or that." They don't actually get into the finite details of the weeds, and with that, you wonder why we have such bad assumptions or planning, or we see, "Oh, we never expected that, anticipated that." This forces you to play through that, because I basically take real life emergency disaster management, all the systems and complexities from logistics to resource allocation to prioritization, and you play through both the tactical, you play through all 3 levels. So there's the tactical game where you're actually combating the fire and crises. Every game has a main focus for the disaster, because the disaster has different behaviors that are built in. No one plays as the disaster. But what a disaster really is it's one main event that causes numerous crises downstream, right?
Cascading impacts.
Cascading impacts. So you have to manage that from the perspective of half the people in the room that you play with, half the players are instant command, the other half are emergency management, all those other transportation, right? You have public health, public works, all that energy, and you're basically replicating the ICS EOC interface, which is so instant command, first responders, and emergency management, consequence and crisis management through this game. And it forces people to think through, well, you know, we're going to call a strike team or task force. We have so many points for allocation. We're going to purchase that. Great. You'll have it in 3 rounds. You know, the current way we practice tabletop exercises, people are just like, oh, poof, we have a strike team, or we have, you know, planes or helicopters. I'm like, it doesn't work that way in real life. You ever call for a strike team? You're looking at 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours. You know, it just depends.
Right.
You call for mutual aid, you're not, you don't get this instantaneously. Unless you're Mary Poppins, you're going to pull that out of a magic bag. And, you know,
and so I'm a responder, but I'm also a dispatcher. So asset management is extremely important. And as assets are moving, the crisis is still crisising, if that's a thing, right? Like, like while you call for something, and that's where I think it is important that I love the way you've set this up, is while you're waiting for that resource, bad things are still happening. And you haven't stopped the bad yet, because that thing hasn't gotten here that's going to help it. So you're losing resources because that's how disasters work.
Absolutely. And the game, another artificiality that a lot of people start with is that it's a beautiful day and you just have this disaster out of nowhere. I'm like, any day in the week, you got special events, you got parades, you got you know, car crashes, you have all that stuff. You actually start with other crises on the board and the disaster in its smallest form.
Correct. Because that's real life.
That's real life.
You know, one of the things that I like about this, it's designed to be fun, but it's preparedness in disguise. It's fun for families to engage in something educational, and beneficial for their safety.
Right. Yeah. So it's really an amazing tool. Obviously, a lot of capabilities and applications for it. And I believe he actually does custom wargaming kits for organizations too that want to kind of take their preparedness to the next level. So if you want to get more information, you want to purchase the game, don't forget to go to emdisastergaming.com. We're going to include a link and some codes that you can use to be able to get the game right here through DisasterClass.
You know, and by the way, Jason, there's something to look forward to, because this game that Arthur has put together, I'm actually expecting to show up in the mail in the next few weeks. I ordered it. I've got the full package, the full meal deal, and I'm really looking forward to it. So what our listeners can look forward to is the unboxing of this game, and I'll show all the different aspects of it. And there might even be a little presentation of playing the game. So that's something our listeners can look forward to in one of our future episodes.
Yeah, I really look forward to seeing some of the gameplay in action and doing a little review of that. So definitely something to look forward to. Well, as you know, there's always homework at DisasterClass.
Always homework. So make sure you like and subscribe to DisasterClass. Leave us a 5-star rating or whatever rating you think that we're worthy of. Give us that thumbs up and comment about something new that you learned or appreciated from this episode.
Yeah. And as always, if you have a question, a preparedness tip, a disaster story to share, send us an email at disasterclass@instinctready.com, or drop us a message on our social media accounts. Doing so will always put you in the running to be featured on the show and win some cool prizes. In fact, Pappy, one cool new thing that we're doing here at Instinct Ready is actually a home risk assessment service where you provide us some basic information, and we actually will put together a risk assessment package for your personal, family, and your home, all for you. And so we're actually going to be giving away a couple of these risk assessment packages. So feel free, make sure you do those comments, leave us the ratings, share DisasterClass with your friends and family. And as you do these things, we're going to be picking listeners to be able to give out these prizes. So thanks again for listening to DisasterClass. Stay educated,
Stay prepared,
stay equipped.
and class is dismissed.
This episode of DisasterClass was sponsored in part by Sawyer Products, Safety 360 Consultants, and Pulse Start Fire. This episode was hosted by Jason Perez and Jason Martin, with a special appearance by Arthur Simental. DisasterClass is directed, produced, and edited by Jason Perez. Copyright 2025, Instinct Ready Incorporated, all rights reserved.